Hello everybody, welcome to Infinity and Paradox. The topic I would like to address today is linked with mental health, namely anxiety. I want to discuss the options that may be helpful for those who have difficulty dealing with their anxiety and related intrusive thoughts. We all have experienced some level of anxiety, probably most of us only a mild version of it. But there are people who become paralyzed and have panic attacks when they have severe episodes of anxiety. Anxiety is a source of stress and it even causes inflammation in the body. For those seeking spiritual development, whatever discipline they choose, an anxious mind will hamper any progression or objective they purpose themselves to. I will even say that releasing anxiety is, after all, part of spiritual development by turning the mind to be more balanced and harmonious. If you are an anxious person and have unsettling thoughts, here are some tips that work for me. The feeling of anxiety is a symptom that we find mostly when intrusive thoughts based on doubts and fears occur. And that is precisely what also triggers the feeling of anxiety. These thoughts come seemingly out of nowhere and are the cause of worry in the person. This type of worry is linked with feeling of a general uncertainty and consequently a feeling of hopelessness that generates anxiety. The feeling that something is imminently going to go wrong and that is my responsibility to fix it. But then, what do you do when you feel uncontrollable or excessive anxiety? The most important thing is to change the mental pattern, to get out of the mental loop triggered by the intrusive thought. That is like a seed, which normally, because it bothers us, we try to solve at all costs, giving it too much attention and therefore reinforcing the mental loop. This is so because the problem that we perceive in our minds caused by these unsecure thoughts is not seeking resolution, only the reinforcement of doubts and imminent catastrophe, leading to a painful loop. It's not supposed to be resolved. Often these are thoughts of past events, doubts about the future, or related to fear of missing out, aka FOMO. Perhaps this is an explanation of how anxiety cases are increasing in Western young people today, because they seek to be more or have more stuff, whether online identity or material goods. Therefore, to resolve anxiety, it is important to have the following mindset. It is necessary to understand that ruminating on intrusive thoughts does not lead anywhere. On the contrary, it would only reinforce the presence of the thought in your mind. If we fight anxiety by trying to resolve the intrusive thought, we will only give it more time and space to grow, because we can always doubt a little more, fear a little more. So in order not to give strength to the thought and the anxiety it causes, it is necessary to focus attention on another, less intellectual activity. Going outside for a run, doing a sport, dancing, gardening, something that forces more blood into the muscles so that the brain has less blood, and naturally the specific intellectual activity of thinking about a problem decreases. It also lessens the emotional commitment one has to the intrusive thought. In other words, it is not to fight anxiety directly, but it is necessary to distract and not give power and strength to the intrusive thoughts. It is not easy to get up and start to exercise when one is in mental pain, because anxiety demands energy and commitment. But that's exactly why this is very, very powerful. Of course, we can't always afford to go for a run because we are at the office or have other things to do or places to be. Although I personally find physical activity to be the most effective way to release anxiety, there are other options. As long as they put you in another thought pattern, you are in a good path. They require more determination because they are more linked to the mind. But this can also be a characteristic and goal to improve in the person that is overwhelmed by anxieties, to be more determined. So, if you're at the office and have an episode of anxiety, do breathing exercises. These could be pranayama exercises or the Wim Hof method or a breathing pattern that you invented based on another technique. Just focus on your breath. Don't forget to do apnea at the end of each cycle, because it is in apnea that you can have the opportunity to silence your mind, listen and feel tranquility. If you do apnea with your lungs full, be sitting or lying down because you could pass out. If you do apnea with empty lungs, you will feel less dizzy. With experience, you can stand, but it is always recommended to sit or lie down if you can. These techniques are basically ways to get out of the previous mental registry and have the opportunity for the mind to be entertained, distracted, and eventually the intrusive thoughts and anxieties will disappear on their own. If you find some other activities that take you out of this loop or trap caused by these thought patterns, like solving a riddle, completing a Sudoku, seeing a movie, hanging out with friends, or playing a game, you are on a good path. Just take the focus of your mind out of the anxiety loop. Finally, if you can't change what you are doing and make any noise, which you will possibly make when you're doing the breathing exercises, then resort to introspection and recognize that you are being invaded by an intrusive thought. Just recognize and label, it's an intrusive thought. Realize that these anxiety episodes are nothing more than intrusive thoughts, something well documented by psychology. That it's not something you have to fight, that you just have to recognize and accept as such. I know this is easier said than done. And this is so because an intrusive thought is like dreaming. A dream in which we have been given a role and which we follow without suspecting that we are asleep. Most of the time we will not remember to do intrusive thought recognition exercises. We are simply caught up in their trap. And here's another point I want to address, which is, what do I do to remind myself to recognize when it is an intrusive thought? This is important because when we feel anxiety, we become more incompetent to do anything. We don't remember how to proceed, and if we do remember, we have no motivation, and there is no motivation because we didn't know how to unfold, to separate oneself as a listener and a speaker. As we unfold, we are our own psychologist who listens and motivates us. But there is another issue, which is the relationship with authority. For if a psychologist tells me what to do, as I consider him as the authority on the subject, I'm more likely to feel motivated if I have to rush out of the mental doldrums. So keep that in mind. If you are to break out of the anxiety-provoking mental loop, step up and speak to yourself with authority. As for reminders, so you can remember how to proceed, how to recognize intrusive doubts and fears, you can write it on paper and stick these 7 points on the walls. And in addition, I recommend chanting these key points to yourself every morning during more anxious times. The 7 key points are: first, I will remember to label these thoughts as intrusive thoughts. Second, I will remind myself that these thoughts are automatic and not up to me. It's not my fault. Third, I will accept and allow the thoughts into my mind and not try to push them away, but I will also not focus on them. Fourth, I will float and practice allowing time to pass. Fifth, I will remember that less is more and pause to give myself time because there is no urgency. 6, I will know to expect the thoughts to come back again probably. 7, I will continue whatever I was doing prior to this intrusive thought while allowing the anxiety to be present. This is based on a guideline from the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. I will leave a link on the description box below. So, by reading and memorizing these key points, you will create a habit. You will have the mindset fresh in your mind. Thus, when an intrusive thought returns, you are more likely to be able to deal with it and reduce anxiety episodes. Recite the points as if they were mantras. Make them your prayer. Incorporate them into your spiritual practice. I hope this video was useful to you. Bye. Thank you for listening to me, and see you next time.